Hello and welcome to this pattern recognition video featuring simplification patterns. And simplification can be a good plan in any part of the game. Even in the beginning, if you can go ahead in material and right out of the beginning in the opening, you can try and simplify down and make the game easier to manage because once you're ahead in material, the more pieces you can trade off, the easier it'll be to convert your advantage into a win. So what do we do here? The knight has just dropped back, and now that created a discovered attack. One with the bishop attacking and also the queen attacking here, and the knight is attacking our queen. So we need to do something about that. Now before you move, let's take a look at the material. We have, 6 pawns. Our opponent only has 5, so we're already ahead in material, I believe. All the other pieces are equal, so we're ahead by a pawn, so we can start trading down material. But is there a way we can get an even bigger advantage? Well, are there any checks, captures, or threats that we need to look at? Checks first. The only checks I see is the knight being able to jump here or here. But because our queen is under attack, what would happen? If our knight just captures, it'll be picked off and then our queen will still be under attack. And then if we capture the queen, well, we would go ahead in material, so that's something to look at. If we move this knight out of the way with a check, then we could pick off the queen here. Oh, okay. So we don't want to check first because the queen can move out of the way. But then, no matter what, we're going to have this pair here lined up on that. So my first instinct, since we're trying to simplify down, is to just start trading material. Maybe we just capture. Then if they capture, well, now we can move our knight out of the way with a check and then pick off the rook. But sometimes when you're trying to decide what to capture, and pause the video at any time if you need to think longer, but sometimes you have to look at the order in which you capture, what move to make first, because sometimes a combination will work. If you make one piece move first, it'll work better than if you move another piece first and then move that piece. So we have to decide, do we take the queen first and then move the knight, or do we just move that knight immediately? Well, then the queen could move out of the way. So I think we need to just take the queen first. So capture. Now we can move our knight, but is it best to move here or here? What's the difference in those two squares? Either way, we're going to grab this rook next, but maybe if we move here and the knight captures our knight, we'll have the option after we take this rook to move up here and fork the knight and this pawn. And in the meantime, the bishop could be capturing this pawn. Then we could fork and then take this pawn and chase the bishop. So maybe that would work. All right, so I'm going to say move here. Okay, that's what they wanted. Because now if the bishop takes that, we can move up here, forking the knight, and this pawn, and we'll be able to pick off that pawn and chase the bishop away. All right. Well, on to the next problem. I'll try and do at least 5 problems. And once again, I set this rating from 1,000 all the way up to 2,500. So it should be a mix for beginners all the way up to, more experienced, advanced players. All right. The rook has just moved down here to f2. I didn't notice it probably captured something backed up by the queen now, and there's a threat of a discovered attack on our king. But it's our turn, so what can we do? With white to move, do we have checks? If we go here, the queen can capture us. If we go here, the pawn can capture us. And we're trying to simplify down. So, if we count up the material, we have 4 pawns, our opponent has 5. But we do have an extra bishop. Maybe we need to lure the... Well, does this even do anything? If we go here, king takes, then if we move here, that doesn't really do anything. They can just capture that. All right. Okay, well maybe we go ahead and just capture anyway, because if the queen is forced to capture and then we capture, our opponent either has to move his rook back or take ours. So capture, capture, capture. If this rook retreats, then we can grab this other pawn and we'll just be ahead. So I think that'll work. All right, so that's what they wanted. And that was a 2490 rated problem. Now if they take our rook, we take theirs, and we're just going to be ahead with an extra bishop. If this rook retreats, well, then we can grab this pawn. Oh, no, we can't. We have to do something. If the rook retreats, well, then we can go here and take that. All right, on to the next problem. What do we have? The knight has just moved, unleashing a discovered attack on our queen, but the knight is where it can be captured. So I don't think this tactic works. Take a look at it, pause the video. I don't think his discovered attack on our queen works, because we can just go ahead and take that rook up here. And then if his queen captures, we capture his queen. It's an even trade, and then we just grab that knight. So capture, capture, and then he'll pick this pawn off, but we have an extra knight. Okay, on to the next problem. I hope you did well on that one. That was only rated a little over like 1003. So let's see what this one is. That was a big difference between a 2400 problem back down to a 1000 problem. Okay. What has white done here? Well, our rook is pinned. If we want to simplify down, we probably want to, do we capture? But then the bishop would just capture. So, do we have any checks? Any good checks here? All right, let's look at the material real quick as well. So 5 pawns for black, 4 for white. So we're ahead by a pawn. If we just capture, bishop captures. Now this pawn's under attack. What can we do now? And, well, once again, if we take, bishop takes. Oh, wow. Now we can just fork. We can go down here and fork the bishop and the queen. If the queen moves to protect, or maybe we do that. Can we do that immediately? No, because there's a capture with check to our king. So I think I don't see any good checks for us. The only check is that. Then the pawn can just capture. All right, so I'm thinking we take, bishop takes, then we fork, queen. Oh, wait a minute. So I'm getting ahead of myself. That's not a fork because the bishop has not taken that pawn yet. So capture, bishop captures. Now what do we do? Oh, we could fork this way, attacking and threatening this. So I think that works. All right, capture. Then we fork those 2 pieces. And now looks like we can just trade queens off and we'll still be ahead a pawn. But is that enough? Is there any bigger advantage that we can get here? Oh, we just take the bishop. All right. That makes sense. We take the bishop, they'll grab this pawn, and we have to watch out for perpetual checks back and forth. So if we take and they take, what do we do next? We probably have to move back up here, threatening to capture this. All right, and they're not going to go any further. That was rated 1537. But if they take this, we probably need to move up here to prevent. Oh, and they can't start perpetually checking us anyway because the knight is covering that square as well. But they could try and drop back. So, if we go here, they could drop back, and defend. Anyway, on to the next problem before I drag that out forever. Okay, what is this? The queen has dropped back, covering that square to prevent a mate in 1. So what do? We want to simplify down. If we look at the material, If we take the queen, they could capture, but then, oh, we can go up here, checking the king, and when it moves, we can capture the other rook. So maybe that's what we want to do. We're already ahead in pawns, so if we get down to where we each have a rook, then our extra pawns should be winning. Okay. Well, I think that's what we're going to go with. Go there. Take, check, grab that, and now we've simplified down into a winning position with 3 extra pawns, and that should be enough to get a win. Okay, should I do any more puzzles, or should I limit? I've been limiting it to 5 lately. Let me know. I think I asked this question before and people said 5 or 10 were okay. So I'm in the mood to do a few more. I'll try and do 5 more. So let's go to the next puzzle. Here we go. A rook is pressed forward attacking our rook. What we need to figure out is if we trade down, do we have enough to win? We have an outside pair of passed pawns on the queen side, which can be a big endgame advantage. So I'm thinking, and if you don't know how to figure this out, just ask yourself what would happen if you take this rook and they would recapture. Now it's your turn. Can your pawns make it to the queening square, this farthest pawn away, before the king can get to it? And you would use the square of the pawn to figure that out. So I'll show you how. All right, we're going to take this. They're going to have to recapture. And now it's our move. We'll be able to push this pawn forward. And we create a square of the pawn, which is this diagonal line from the square that our pawn will be on. And then we make a square out of that. So if the king cannot enter this square, which he cannot, then we'll be able to promote. So boom, and we start running, and the king cannot get into that square. Once he goes here, we'll make it 1 move ahead of the king and promote to a queen and be winning. All right, on to the next problem. A bishop is just captured here. Our queen is under attack. The obvious move would be to just capture that bishop, unless something else is going on here and we're trying to simplify down. So maybe we counterattack, because if you're trying to simplify down, you want to trade off pieces. So now, if we take, we're attacking their queen. If they go ahead and capture, and we capture, is there anything better? Oh, and also we want to avoid this. We want to avoid the knight, taking that and breaking open our pawns over here. So we probably want to get rid of that knight. So now, if we capture and they capture our queen, well then we capture theirs. If they try to retreat their bishop, well then we'll grab their rook. So they'll capture, doubling their pawns, and then we will go ahead and capture. Now let's look at the material as well before we start doing this. We have 5 pawns, they have 6, so they're ahead by 1 pawn. But we're going to come out ahead an extra piece once we take that. Oh, and they go that way. All right. Well, if they do that, we can grab a rook now. And then once we go here, now the knight is restricted, even though our pawns are busted up. We do have an extra rook after all that. Okay, the next three problems. We're almost done here. Okay, the king has dropped back because it was in check by the queen. What do we do here? We're looking to simplify. Now, the problem is that king is kind of open. We have a check here. Then we could chase that king around. We could go here and check, but then the king would just run here. Then we go back. So we could have a perpetual check. Now the problem is we're behind by a pawn. And our king is wide open. So we need to find a way to get something going here. I was wondering if we could pick off the pawns as we're chasing the king. And we have to watch out with this passed pawn. So if white is trying to march this pawn up the board, our big advantage is that we're able to attack his king. So maybe I go here, delivering a check. I mean, he could go here. We just check again. So we're kind of just checking the king all around. I'm not seeing a good advantage here. So we go there. If he goes here, what do we do? We could go here. Does that do anything? Is there any way to go after this queen? Oh, okay. All right, so pause the video if you need to look at this further. But I think I figured this out, and it comes down to, well, we want to simplify. So that usually involves getting the pieces off the board. And we want to get rid of this queen. That way we don't have to worry about it chasing our king around. So what if, if we look at all the checks, we can check here, 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 or here. Those don't look so great. What does that accomplish? We either chase the king around or the queen gets captured by the king. But what about here? If we go there and it's a fork of the king and the queen, so we go here, queen will be forced to take, we take, and now if this pawn starts trying to run, our king should be able to stop it, but we have a breakthrough here. If we go there and they capture, then our pawn can push up the board and promote. So check, capture, and here's where that square of the pawn comes in. If we go here and they capture and then we go here, the king will not be able to enter that square of the pawn. Now if we go here and the king starts running over immediately, well then we can just push up here and the king will not be able to enter the smaller square of the pawn. So there we go. And no way to stop that. We'll promote to a queen and then pick these pawns off and win. All right, two more problems. Rook has done what? Just captured here. So do we capture with our rook or do we have something better? If we're trying to simplify down, let's look at the material first. We have 3 pawns. Our opponent has 5. So we're down by 2 pawns. Okay, so we need to do something drastic here. Hmm. All right. What do we have that we can even do here? This looks like... It just looks like black's in trouble in this. Hmm. All right. Maybe we just double rooks. If we do that and they take, we take. Now the queen is under attack. If the queen moves, we can take. Queen captures. And then what? I don't see a good follow-up after that. So, what if we take immediately? We just capture. Well, then their queen would recapture. And now, all right, maybe I'm missing something here. Obviously I am. So what is there? Do you see something that I do not? Is there a way to attack this king? Hmm. Is there a way to deliver a check? We could go here and fork, but our queen is under attack, so that's a problem. Hmm. All right. I'm just gotta. This is a difficult one here. Do we once again? Do we double up? If they capture, we capture. The queen is under attack. It can just move out of the way, and then we take the other rook. The queen would capture and end up on e1. And then what do we do? Oh, maybe we... I don't know. Is there something here where we attack the queen? If the bishop takes, our queen could slide over, forking the bishop and the king. But that's if we get rid of this. All right. This is a tough one. What if we go here? Queen captures. I don't know. I just don't see anything here. What if we ignore the attack on our queen? Counterattack here. If they take our queen, we could take theirs. So maybe that's the move to make, is to counterattack here. And attack their queen. If they capture, we capture. But the problem is, oh man, this must be a higher rated one, I'm guessing. If we go here and they take, oh, do we take with that though? Maybe we take with the rook. But then if they capture, Or are we just going to be behind here? So if we go there forking with this knight, forking the queen and the rook, if they take, oh, then we take, and we could have a discovered check and then pick off the rook. So I don't know. I'm going to try that. Or wait, hold on. I'm not white. I'm the black pieces. So they don't like that. All right. So that didn't even work. Okay. Do we do this later? Okay. So the obvious move was correct. Now what? Do we just take here? No. There's something better. What is better? That. Because if they take our queen, we capture their rook with check, and then our knight would pick off their queen. So now we can just take that and be ahead. All right, that was a 2200 rated one, so that was a little tougher. Okay, the final problem here. We just had a capture on d7. Now it's white's turn to move. We have, and I'd mentioned this in past videos, it usually takes about 3 pieces to get a good attack on the king. You know, maybe more or less, but on average. Now here the king's wide open, has really, what, 1 defender? Maybe you could include this pawn barely. But what can we do here? And we're looking to simplify down. We have to watch out ourselves as, you know, there's a mate threat here. So we need to act immediately here. We could just capture with check. And then what? Or maybe we check with the queen first. The king would have to move here. Then we could capture with check. King could capture here. All right, this is getting tricky. If we go there, check. The king would have to move here. Well, then what do we do? How do we continue the attack? So check. The king goes here. We pick off the rook. Delivering a check, the king would take our knight. And then we check again. All right, I'm just, the video is dragging out a little bit, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Pause if you want to think longer. No, they do not want that. How about that? Okay, that's the way to go, apparently. All right. But how do you follow this up? All right, I guess we're going there. And then what? We just keep chasing around. If we go here, he has to go there. And then what? All right, I'm not seeing this. I have trouble with these wide open checking attacks like this. So we go there. The king has to go here. Then what do we do? Or do we go here? He would take. Then what? The king's wide open. No, they don't want that. Okay, I guess we have to go there. But now what? Now what do we do? I'm not seeing a good continue. Oh, okay, we swing all the way over here and force the exchange. Okay, that was a little tougher. No wonder that was 2490 rated. All right, I'm going to wrap the video up here. Feel free to leave comments, like and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.